Hello everyone, Colin Canet here for WoodWorkWeb. Today we've got a great little project. We're going to be making this little arts and crafts umbrella stand, and because it's fall, it's the perfect time to be doing this kind of a project. But today we've got a little bit of a twist. We're going to be using the Craig pocket hole system, and we're big fans of this system. It is a different way of putting together projects. It puts them together, holds them together very well. What's even more important, if you ever need to take them apart, this system is unbeatable. There's nothing else like it. It really is a good little system. So stick with us and watch how we go about making this great little arts and crafts style umbrella stand. So let's take a moment to see where we're at with these plans. Now, what we're going to be working on, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut, you always cut the biggest pieces first, and that's because what falls out of cutting bigger pieces you can often use later on for other pieces. And I'm thinking if we cut these, we may be able to use part of what we cut out for these for the spindles, but we'll see when we get there. But what I want to talk about right now is this area, basically of the looks. Now here's a top view of the umbrella stand, and here's a side view. If we were to look at a side view of this, what we would see is this. I've had some pieces of wood that I played around with, and there's one that I actually put a square on. And what I determined was 1.25 inches is perfectly would work perfectly for these four corner posts. And the reason that I like that is because I knew this piece here was going to be 3/4 inch wide and about 4 inches high. Now, I didn't know what size the spindles would be, and I played around with some different sizes. And here's what worked out really nice. When we look at the bottom of the corner posts, a corner post will look like that. Now, if you've ever had anything to do with photography, what you know is that everything is about dark, light, and dark, shadows and brightness in photography, and the same is true in woodworking. And what we get when we make that end post a little bit bigger is that we get different levels of light going in, which gives us different gradations of shadow. And here's where they are. The post gives us this depth here. These gables, because they're inset about 1/8 inch, they actually give us a second level. Now these spindles, you could actually make these spindles so that they're 3/4 inch, so that they would go down right flush with the gables on the outside, but we're better off putting them in, and here's why. Because now we can get a third level of depth. So it gives our project that much more depth. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off by cutting off these four corner posts at 1.25 inches. Then we're going to cut the slot and the gables, and these are going to come down like that, up and down. So they'll sit in little slots there, and we'll show you that. And then we'll cut the spindles and the little spacers, and so there's the four corner posts, and I've actually cut them to length off camera as well. In fact, I even sanded them off camera because nobody wants to watch anybody sanding. What we're going to do next is we're going to cut the pieces that are going to go in here, and I decided that they're going to be 7 inches long that are going to go in here. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting the slot that the spindles are going to be sitting in. And I've already installed the stacked dado head in my table saw, And I've set it to 1/2 inch wide because remember we said those spindles were going to be a 1/2 inch square. And I've also set the depth of this to 1/2 inch because it really doesn't matter. And all I'm going to do now is just do a quick test on a piece of scrap that I have that's 3/4 of an inch wide. Now that's what that little dado is going to look like. But there's going to be a top and a bottom, and I can see that these aren't absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to do is when I cut these, I'm actually going to mark one side of the board that I cut, because I'm going to cut all the boards at the same time, this dado all at the same time. And I'm going to mark it on the back of the board like that so that I'm able to orient. So I thought, while I'm at the table saw, and I have to remove my stacked dado anyway, why don't I just cut these pieces off at the table saw rather than setting up at the miter saw. So the first thing I'm going to do is square off the edge, and then I can just start cutting all of my boards one at a time. I ran some test pieces of the 1/2 by 1/2 to make sure that they fit in the little slot there, and I discovered that I think we're going to need 5 of these little spindles in each side. So 4 sides times 5, that means I'm going to need to cut 20 of these, and I've got 5, so I'm going to need to cut another 15. But I'm going to do that off camera because there's nothing to see except just running these boards through the table saw to make 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch spindles. What I've laid out here is nothing's been put together yet, so this is just what one side is going to look like. So here's the bottom, here's the top up here. What we're going to do next is we need to make spacers for all of these spindles. And what I've determined, I'm moving them around here a bit, but what I've determined is that the width of these will work out nicely, and it'll leave a little bit more of a gap on the sides, and that's what I want because I want a balanced look. And here's our spacer material, and you can see that it fits in there just like a glove. It's perfect. But what we need to do is we need to cut little strips. And you need to be very careful when you're working with small pieces because that's often where accidents can happen. This is one of these, they call them mag switches. They're actually a magnet stuck onto a little thing like this, and when you turn the magnet, when you turn this, the magnet drops down onto the steel, and it makes it a reel. You can't move. It's very hard to move that. So we've made a little jig here and we've set this up. We've moved this along like this. Just by releasing these, we can, now that's firm, and we can release it by moving that. And we took one of our spacer bars, and we checked, because this is a 1/2 inch, and we checked, and that's exactly a 1/2 inch from the end of that little bolt, and you can see all that is a little bolt in there, and there's a nut to lock it, and that is exactly 1/2 inch from the blades. Lock this in place. Okay, there's the two pieces that I've made, and if we try that side and snug that up, those actually fit in there perfect. And I'll be honest, I had to go back and do this a couple times and make them just a little bit slimmer. Some of you ask if I ever make mistakes, and the truth is I make lots of mistakes. I just don't show them on the video. I just don't show them on the video to you. So there we go. That's all we need to do. We'll duplicate this tops and bottoms for all the sides, and I'll go and do that off camera. There, and that's what they look like. And there's a stop. You can actually see those if you look closely. You can see the stop in there where the screws are going to go in. So I'm going to go ahead off camera and just do this entire stack here because you don't need to see me. Now that you've seen the process, I'm just going to go ahead now and put screws or put holes in the back of all of these little panels. I said I was going to show you some tips along the way, and right here I want to tell you one of the secrets of furniture makers. If you look real close at the very end of this board, of this piece of wood, you'll notice there's some little bevels on there. And one of the secrets of furniture makers is they put these little tiny bevels on there, and it does two things. It first of all finishes off the legs, because this actually is the bottom of a leg. And not only does it finish it off, it makes it look more professional, but the other thing that it does is it prevents the leg from chipping. If you just have a square bottom like this one and you're moving furniture around, there's a very good chance that you're going to get splinters on it. So what we do is we put these little tiny bevels on the Now it's time for some assembly. Remember we talked about how we have visibility? Well, because of that, we need to lift these up off of the deck that we're placing this on. So I've just got a couple of scrap pieces of 1/16. So there's those two pieces, and you can see how you can actually see the shadow line in there. You can see how this is going to lift it off and give us that. But the first thing I'm going to do is just run a bead of glue down, because we've got all the little stops to put in, just like that. And then we have a small one on each side, another spindle, another small one on each side. Now, because the top is going to be the most visible thing, I made this little jig that just stands at the top of the, and it just helps to center, or to bring these so that all of these are equal all the way along the top here. So here we are at that critical point where we're doing the final assembly. And you can see we have all of the pieces, and that's what the umbrella stand is going to look like when we get it finished. But you can see from this angle here that if we use this setup, there we are, we're not, well, we could actually get in the bottom ones here. We might be able to get those in. But there's a little rig on the market, and a few people market it. It's a little right angle driver, and it's perfect for little areas like this. So we're actually going to just put this in here just like this, and the actual drill driver fits just like that, in that, and you can now drill in very tight corners. And that's exactly what we're going to use to put this together. And don't forget the base. I've already cut the pocket holes in mine, and I've also notched the corners for the 4 posts to go around. Now I just need to put it on. So there's our little arts and crafts style umbrella stand. But what I want to show you is when you move it around, how you get to see, even with these lights in here, how you get to see the highlights and the shadows, and all of that makes a difference when you have these different layers. So that's a great little project. You can probably do this in a day or so, maybe a day and a half. It looks great, and the next thing I'm going to do now is finish it. And I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with the finish on this, but I think I'm going to shellac this. Just because it's got so many different parts, and I want to do something, I want to paint something on it to make the wood stand out. So we'll decide exactly what we're going to do, and we'll come back, give you one last look at it with the finish on it, and that'll complete this little umbrella stand. So this concludes our video on making this great little arts and crafts umbrella stand. It's an easy project. You can probably do it in a day, and it will make a great addition to your entranceway. We ask you to subscribe to our channel, and if you want more detail on this, if you go to WoodWorkWeb, we're going to have an associated article that goes along with this that'll give you some of the detail. So, I'm Colin Canet for WoodWorkWeb. Thanks for watching.